So guys, we're out driving Geo's old Supra, and of all the things that we've learned today, Geo's a terrible passenger.
This is just not for me. I wasn't built for this. Hey guys, this is Geo with Real Street Performance. Behind me is a car that's extremely special to me. This car belonged to me and I sold it back in 2015. I got this car from a close friend of the company's, Dave Warren, who sold me the car shortly after I sold my original Supra. I never expected to be back in a Supra that quickly, and I'm super thankful that he let me take over this car. At the time, it had a TH400, it was going high nines, and very quickly, the first time we went to the track, Jay got it to go 9.3. And from there, it was a process. We went nines, we went high eights pretty quickly after that, after building the engine. We took it to the Texas Invitational, went 181, which for a Supra back then, that was pretty much unheard of. Later, took it to TX2K, did good things over there. We did a bunch of roll racing. We beat some really impressive cars that a lot of people weren't beating back then. We went 818 in 2014 with a full weight car that I was quite a bit bigger back then, and it had full air conditioning. Again, just things that hadn't really been done in the community. And in 2015, I decided to sell the car. It's one of those things where I knew the car had a really great setup back then, but we've learned a lot. I mean, Jay's learned a lot all these years, and technology has progressed tremendously. So Phil, the owner of this car, decided to send the car down here for some upgrades. So while it still makes about the same power, because it's still the same turbo, we're gonna, we're gonna do some things to this car that's gonna be bringing it up to the 2021 level.
The major changes are modern torque converter. So we have a Pro Torque torque converter and Real Street Motec wiring harness and Motec M1. So this car before had a 100 series ECU, which is a great ECU, but its roots are nearly 20 years old. So going into an M1, going to drive-by-wire, having a better control over the power and how the car makes power and applies that power to the asphalt or the concrete or the racetrack, making it faster, safer, and more enjoyable. So that's basically the object of the game. The car's fast. We've known it's fast. It's been fast for a long time. But to make it to where anybody can get in it and stop the throttle and just change the gear shifts at the right time and not have to worry about the thing driving them into a ditch, because now it has really proper modern power management. So we're going to take this car to lunch. I'm going to take Geo for a spin. He's a terrible passenger, but he's going to have to deal with it. And
he doesn't trust me. I mean, I wouldn't trust me. I get it, but... So I haven't been in this car since 2015.
Yeah?
And I've actually never been a passenger in this car, ever.
I was a passenger in it once. It was not enjoyable.
Ever.
I'll not do that again.
Man, it's so much nicer than whenever I originally got this car. Like, yeah, it was like a complete transformation.
Well, this set of updates is a big improvement. I made a hit this morning, and you can just floor it, and it just rides a slip aim. So it hits the TC a little bit on the 1-2 shift, but it doesn't pop or anything. It just limits the power, and then it just rides a little bit of wheel speed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got it going pretty good in the past, but I mean, the stuff now is just, it's a whole game changer. Some of the recent developments are just incredible. I mean, the last time I drove Clay's car, a manual, 6-speed Supra, I could floor it in first gear and no lift it into second. That's like unheard of. So yeah. I'm excited to see how this car, performs after all these changes.
It's pretty good. So right there, if you look at the data, it rides like 5 to 6 mile per hour rear wheel spin. And you can feel it, it's riding. But if you put any more into it, the tire gets upset.
So it's basically just giving it as much power as they can take on that surface and under these conditions, basically.
Yeah, and if it spins the tires more than a tolerable amount, it'll go into cut.
Okay.
But right there, it's just timing retard.
I mean, you couldn't really hear it or nothing. No. It's like, I've heard cars with traction control before, and it just sounds like a lot of misses, a lot of cuts, just a lot of nastiness. And this is just perfectly smooth. That was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
do a pull on this car before, you had to do 2 rolling burnouts and be on perfect concrete for it to hook up, like literally.
Yeah.
So it was like an entire process.
Right.
You know, we've already done a hit on this thing with just cold tires and it just hooked up.
Yeah. No, it once you get it set up correctly, it will always accelerate the best it can. So the way that the strategy works is you target a slip aim, and the slip aim is you always want some wheel spin, some level of wheel spin. So once you understand what that some level is and what accelerates the car the best, then you can just put that number in as an aim, and then you can adjust the boost level to where the traction control is always doing something. That way, like if you're on asphalt, it's going to be more active than you're on concrete. But you wouldn't want to set it to where it was doing nothing, because then you'd have a car that was slower than it could be on concrete when it had more traction. So the Motec will alter the boost level, ignition timing, throttle angle, and then if things really get out of hand, it will do cuts where it will, you know, sound more like a traditional system where it's cutting either fuel or timing cycles, but those are pretty abrupt. So the neat thing about it is it just does its thing without having to be very invasive, you know?
When Jay says something is neat, it's like a whole different thing. For him to say it's neat, it means it's terrific.
Well, because it's so much work in progress. You know, like when I got into these cars, you could buy like a Race Logic traction control box. And these cars have always been very forgiving in the aspect, like, if you had a Mustang or you had a Corvette, like, you can put down more power and go faster with a Supra than you could with one of those other chassis, because they just couldn't maintain traction. Well, then as turbochargers got better and you have access to better fuel and all this stuff, like, cars are just making more power. So it becomes more critically important.
Oh yeah, and in all reality, you know, the Supra is a platform where everyone wants the big number, but that big number comes with a lot of responsibility. And I have seen it many times where somebody will make a big power number and then they'll try to run the car, and it's just a lot to handle. Like, it's a lot, but it's because they don't have a system like this.
Yeah.
And I think Phil is going to be delighted once he races this car, because I know that the car was a lot back then, but now it's a lot more manageable, and it's putting down as much power as, you know, the surface can handle, and it's just going to be fast.
Right. Yeah, and he has a simplified wiring solution that's all new stuff, so you get rid of that, you know, 25-year-old stuff. You know, the keypad handles, you know, 8 different functions with only 4 wires because it's on CAN. So just from a wiring aspect, it's way easier of a car to own and diagnose when need be. And then with the drive-by-wire, you know, the thing just fires off, it idles great. Like, there's a lot of perks with a modern proper system like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, the car was incredible before, but the reality is it was a setup that was back in 2014, 2015 when it was done. Now, I mean, the car, it doesn't necessarily make more power because it's still the same turbo. It still makes way more power than most roads could even handle. Right. But now it's just a better car, period. So
yeah, I mean, the 100 series Motec box was born in like 2001, so it's a fantastic ECU from a lot of aspects, but, you know, computers and software changes very quickly. So the M1 stuff is just I would say about as good as it gets. And if you look at the costs involved and you think about the actual enjoyment, the end result, the memories that your car brings into your life, then having something that is really capable of putting the power down and really capable of being effective on the street without trying to kill you.
I
That's a big deal.
I agree with you 100%. I'm the same person that if somebody says, you know, I used to say the same thing, hey, why does that ECU cost so much, or why that? But once you experience it, then to me it's like a no-brainer. I don't even want another car without it. Like, it's gotta have it. It was the same thing back then, you know, with the converter. It was one of the things that you gave me a hard time about because, you know, I had a good converter in there, but I didn't have a great converter. And, you know, after all these years, I see the result that the Pro Torque converter, you know, and how the cars change. And I wish I had done that back then. Well, now this car has that, so it's another change that was made to the car that's just going to make it better.
Yeah. And when you try to convince someone why it's better, it's like, man, you can use a lot of words. They just need to experience it for themselves, or trust someone that's been through it enough that they really just want to give the person the end result. They don't want to dance around a bunch of future promises or firmaware updates or things that are in the
we've all been there. We've all blown a tremendous amount of money just to learn all these things. And you know, people these days are very lucky that they can just buy a proven recipe without having to go through it. Now you have to be smart enough to understand that, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, you know, are going to take the same shortcuts that we took, and they're you know, some will make it work, but in all reality, you know, all paths lead to this, you know.
You know, that's a good way to put it. If you want the end result, then all paths lead to this. Because, you know, Phil sent his car down here. It got a bunch of very, very critically useful updates that now make the car a more reliable, more enjoyable car that he can take out, and, you know, he can run it on 30 pounds or run it on 45 pounds, and it's fast and it's effective, and it's not going to try to hurt him if it lights the tires up, you know. So it does make for a much better vehicle.
No, I think he's going to be incredibly happy, and this is just an absolute awesome example of a real deal street car. You know, this car went 818 back in 2014. I mean, it's a setup that's extremely capable, and now if somebody really wants to run it, they could run a real hard number. And we're sitting here with air conditioning. We just took it to lunch. I mean, you could drive this car anywhere you would want. So it's a pretty incredible example of a well-done car.
Yeah. Well, it's a testament to just how neat this platform is.
Yeah.
Because amongst, you know, if you had a 90s anything else, just the deterioration of the vehicle because of the manufacturer's build quality kind of is a dream crushing.
Yeah.
You don't want a 94 Corvette.
Right.
You know, like, they're neat cars, but they don't age as well as these cars age.
Right.
You know, so it's definitely, Supra's a badass car.
No, I mean, it's an exciting time to be a Supra owner, just with everything that's available. You just have to take advantage of it, really.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway,
thanks for the ride. Never doing that again.
Better.
Am I next?
Better me than you? Before, this car had a Gato intake manifold with a standard Ford style throttle body, and we went with a Plasma Man 12 injector manifold with a GM flange. So we just bolted on a GM drive-by-wire throttle body. It has a real street harness that has R35 coils, so they have plenty of output. The guys at T1 have proven it to be a really, really solid coil option, and it fits underneath the factory ignition cover, so it looks nice and clean. The torque converter you can't see, but you know, for the past few years, we've gone really fast with that product. And if you look into X275 Racing or anyone that's really doing awesome things with automatic transmissions, the Pro Torque is a staple brand in that Turbo 400 world. So that was another thing that was done. And, you know, I guess the main thing from a technician standpoint is now we have a car that's going to be easier to service. Something goes wrong, it's, you know, it's all new wiring, easy to diagnose, a simplified switch system with the Motec keypad, and just a better, safer car for Phil to enjoy. So it's still a very cool car, a lot of history in the community. You know, there's definitely a neat highlight reel that goes along with this car, but that's all work that's been done. And now what we've provided our customer with is just a better, more modernized car for him to enjoy.